Hello students, in this video we are going to read and explanation of we'll do the reading and explanation of chapter 6, that is the story An Angel in Disguise, written by T.S. Arthur. So T.S. Arthur was one of the most popular writer of the 19th century, and he has written many stories which are full of compassion and sensitivity, and so is this story. Here we can see how a young child who is a sick child and helpless child transforms the entire life of two different people, or one particular family, we can say Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, how their life is changed by one helpless girl, and that is Maggie. So here we will be doing the reading of the chapter and then we'll move to the explanation. It is page number 77 as per the books. Idleness, vice and intemperance had done their miserable work, and the dead mother lay cold and still amid her ragged children. She had fallen upon the threshold of her own door in a drunken fit and died in the presence of her frightened little ones. So here we are given a brief introduction of the chapter, of the story. What happens right in the beginning is the mother, she was into habit of drinking and all the bad things, so that is why she was like a castaway from the society, from the village. Nobody wanted to talk to her, and she was all by her own self. She didn't have her husband and she just had 3 children, so she was always drunk, and that is why in one particular night, in a drunken fit, she falls down at the threshold, at the entrance of her door, of her house door, and as she falls over there, she falls and dies on the spot. Now the dead body of this lady is lying right in front of the door, and she had 3 children who were just sitting over there, terrified, frightened. They did not know what to do. They did not have anyone else in the family. The only elder was the mother, and she has died over there. She's lying dead there. So these children were crying. They were totally in despair. They did not know what to do. So this news spread out into the village. Obviously, when somebody dies, the news spreads out, even if by one person only, but gradually it spreads out as a wildfire through all the oral, you can say, communications. So here similarly the news spread out everywhere. Although nobody wanted to talk to this lady, nobody was in contact with this family, but when they came to know about the death of this lady, they were touched by the human feelings of humanity, or basic emotions of what the other 3 children would be doing then. Here we see, death touches the spring of our common humanity. This woman had been despised or scoffed at and angrily denounced by nearly every man, woman and child in the village. But now, as the fact of her death was passed from lip to lip in subdued tones, pity took the place of anger and sorrow of denunciation. Neighbors went hastily to the old tumble-down hut in which she had secured little more than a place of shelter from summer heats and winter cold. So here, as this information of the death came from one place to another, and people started coming to know about the death of the lady, they were touched by the pity and their anger, because they never wanted to have any communication with this lady, her family. But now, out of pity, they decided that they would be going there to the tumble-down hut. Means it was the hut or a house of only for the namesake. It was all broken and in a very bad state of condition. So they all decided to go over there to look after the 3 children who are left all by themselves, because they did not have the father and the mother. Some of them came with the little bit of food or whatever for the young starving children, whereas some came with their old castaway clothes of their own children to give to the new children, to give to these 3 children to get a change for their clothing. Even the young girl, she was Maggie, she was sitting there, her dress was changed. Everything was done to take care of these 3 children at that particular moment. Here we see about that. Some with grave clothes for a decent interment of the body, and some with food for the half-starving children, 3 in number. Of these, John was the eldest one. He was somewhere around 12 and a stout lad who could do something good in the farming, or as a farmer. Kate, between 10 and 11, was bright, active girl, and she was like capable of learning new things. She was a clever girl, and something good might be done with this girl if she got into the proper hands, proper care. And 2 years before, Maggie was the youngest one. She was hopelessly diseased because 2 years ago she fell from her window and got injured on her back, and since then she was bedridden. She had to be carried away to various places only then she could be taken, she could move, otherwise she was not capable of moving all by her own self. So she was totally dependent on the mother. Her condition was the most pathetic. What is to be done with the children? That was the chief question now. The dead mother would go underground and be forever beyond all care or concern of the villagers. Now the thing has been mentioned over here has been the question that rose, that what will be the next thing to be done with the kids, because the dead mother is gone underground means she has been buried, and once she is buried it will be forgotten by all the other villagers and everyone. But the children who are alive, they need to have some particular security for the future. There should be something done for them, and that was the thing that was getting into the that was the main chief concern of all the individual people, those who had come over there. So here while they were discussing, but the children must not be left to starve. After considering the matter and talking it over with his wife, Farmer Jones said that he would take John and do well by him, now that his mother was out of the way. And Mrs. Ellis, who had been looking out for a bound girl, concluded that it would be charitable in her to make choice of Katy, even though she was too young to be of much use for several years. She said, Mrs. Ellis said, that I could do much better, I know, but as no one seems inclined to take her, I must act from a sense of duty, expect to have trouble with the child, for she is an indisciplined thing, used to having her own way. So here Farmer Jones said that okay, I have decided and consulted my wife and everything I have seen, so I can take John, the eldest one, to help me out in the farm. Whereas on the other hand, Mrs. Ellis, who was a rich lady, she said that I'll take the young girl Katy and she might help me out later onwards, because I require a bound girl. Although right now she's too young to help me out, but I will teach her. Although it is I can get a very good girl for myself, but the problem is nobody seems to be inclined to take this girl, means nobody wants to take this girl or wants to take the responsibility of this girl. So that is why out of charity I'll take this girl and I will try to teach her, because I'll have to teach her a lot many things, because she's an indisciplined child, means she is not taught anything. She is totally raw and she doesn't know what to do. She has to be taught everything, even basic etiquettes. These are the things which have been mentioned by Farmer Jones and as well as Mrs. Ellis, just to show that they are obliging these kids, whereas in reality we know they took the kids who were really a benefit for them, because both of these kids were of great use to anyone, because John was a person good enough for farming, whereas Katy was a girl good enough to learn everything for the household chores and be a bound girl. So here both of them were helping their own self, Farmer Jones and Mrs. Ellis, but they pretended as if they are obliging these kids. Here next paragraph we see, but no one said, I'll take Maggie. Pitying glances were cast on her worn and wasted form, and thoughts were troubled on her account. Mothers brought cast-off garments and, removing her soiled and ragged clothes, dressed her in clean attire. The sad eyes and patient face of the little one touched many hearts, and even knocked at them for entrance, but none opened to take her in, who wanted a bedridden child. So here all of these showed as if they are obliging the young kids, but nobody showed even a little bit of concern for talking about little Maggie, though she was the person who required most of the care and attention. Many of the ladies, they came with the cast-off clothes of their own children, and they brought these clothes for Maggie and got her changed. Her soiled and ragged clothes were changed in clean attire. She was given a proper new bed sheet where she was laid down very nicely, and people gave her something to eat. But on the other hand, she was still looking at patiently and sadly to all the other ladies, and as if she is requesting them to take them in their heart as well as in their home to take care of this young girl. But none of these ladies was capable enough of taking this decision to take the young child to their home, because they knew it will be a lot of responsibility. Their families might not support this decision, and as a matter of fact, it was very evident that nobody wanted to take a sick child home, which will be a great burden and in their way throughout their life, or as long as that child lives with them. Take her to the poor house, said a rough man, of whom the question, what's to be done with Maggie, was asked. Nobody is going to be bothered with her. The poorhouse is a sad place for a sick and helpless child, answered one. So there is one particular person, he said that when he was asked what to be done with the child, he said that this girl should be sent to the poorhouse. So it is a place where she will be fine and nobody will be bothered about her. So other person said that it is a very sad place for a child, and especially for a sick child over here, like this one, a helpless child. So the man said, "For your child or mine," said the other, lightly speaking, "but for this brat it will prove a blessed change. She will be kept clean, have healthy food and be doctored, which is more than can be said of her past condition." He replied that it will be a very sad place and a bad place for your child, my child, who have got all the luxuries of the life. But a child like this, for her it will be a very welcome, nice, blessed change, because right now her condition is even worse. But at least over there, once she goes over there, she will be given proper food, she will be shown to the doctor, her medication would be done, and this would be better in her than her past condition. So for her, for a child like her, this poorhouse would be a better option. There was reason in that, but still it didn't satisfy. The day following the day of death was made the day of burial. A few neighbors were at the miserable hovel, but none followed dead cart, as it bore the unhonored remains of its pauper grave. Farmer Jones, after the coffin was taken out, placed John in his wagon and drove away, satisfied that he had done his part. Mrs. Ellis spoke to Kate with a hurried air, "Bid your sister goodbye," and drew the tearful children apart ere scarcely their lips had touched in a sobbing farewell. So here, the day she died, that lady, the very next day it was decided that the child would be sent to the poorhouse, and the very next day the burial day was done, the funeral was done, and as the cart took the dead body of the lady towards the graveyard, nobody followed it to the graveyard. It was taken to the grave and there it must have been buried. But over here at the home of these three children, hurriedly, as soon as the cart took away the dead body, Farmer Jones asked John to sit in his wagon, and he took him away, drove him away to his house, and that is how he was satisfied that he has done his part of helping the child. On the other hand, Mrs. Ellis, instead of getting more responsibility of Maggie as well, she quickly took this girl Katie, and with a very nice hurried air, very quickly she asked her to bid farewell to her sister, and she took her away from the sister. So both the girls hardly had bid farewell to each other when they were parted away. Hastily others went out, some glancing at Maggie and some resolutely refraining from a look, until all had gone. She was alone. Just beyond the threshold, Joe Thompson, the wheelwright, paused and said to the blacksmith's wife, who was hastening off with the rest, "It's a cruel thing to leave her so." "Then take her to the poorhouse. She'll have to go there," answered the blacksmith's wife, springing away and leaving Joe behind. Now everybody was in a hurry to leave because they had their own daily chores, as well as they did not want to get the responsibility or get stuck with the responsibilities of the sick child. So they were just trying to wash off from this particular thing and go away to their own houses without taking the responsibility of the young child. At this time, when everybody tried to hurriedly tried to get away from this, at that time, the wheelwright, Joe Thompson, he paused near the gate, near the door of the that hut, and then he saw that the blacksmith's wife was running away from there, and he quickly asked her that, "Don't you think it is very cruel that we are leaving this child over here all by herself, even when we know that she's a helpless child?" So she said, "If you are so worried about her, it's better you take her with you and take her to the poorhouse, because anyways he has to go to the poorhouse." And then even this lady also went away. For a little while the man stood with a puzzled air, then he turned back and went into the hovel again. Maggie, with painful effort, had raised herself to an upright position and was sitting on the bed, straining her eyes upon the door, out of which all had just departed. A vague terror had come into her thin white face. Now here, Joe Thompson, after this particular conversation with the blacksmith's wife, he turned and got inside the house of this young girl, of Maggie. While he was getting inside, he saw that Maggie, with some particular problem, had managed to make her sit in a upright position with the support of the bed, probably. and while she was sitting like that, she was trying to see somebody, at least one person outside the hut, outside the door, and there she could see no one. She was quite scared because now she felt that she was all by herself. There is nobody to take care of this young child, and a strange fear was there in her, what's seen on her face, and Mr. Joe Thompson saw that. As soon as he saw that, this girl was really relieved when she saw Mr. Joe Thompson looking at her, and she said, "Oh, Mr. Thompson," she cried out, catching her suspended breath, "don't leave me here all alone." Though rough in exterior, Joe Thompson, the wheelwright, had a heart, and it was very tender in some places. So this explanation shows, as soon as this young girl said, "Please don't leave me," this rough exterior, a rough built man, Joe Thompson, he had a heart very soft, full of feelings and emotions, and he was touched by this particular request of the young girl. He liked children and was pleased to have them come to his shop, where sleds and wagons were made or mended for the village lads, without a draft on their hoarded sixpence. So here his shop was of that, making or repairing the wheels, cycles, sleds, and for the young kids, for the young children, it was done free of cost. He did not charge them anything, and so he loved children coming to his shop, and he did everything free of cost for them, and that is why we can make out that he had a very tender heart, full of feeling and emotions, especially for the kids. And when he saw this young kid lying all by herself, scared and in a very helpless condition, he was greatly touched, and especially when the girl said, "Please don't leave me, Mr. Thompson." So he said, "No, dear," he answered, in a kind voice, going to the bed and stooping down over the child. "You shan't be left here alone." Then he wrapped her with the gentleness almost of a woman in the clean bedclothes which some neighbor had brought, and lifting her in his strong arms, bore her out into the air and across the field that lay between the hovel and his home. So here this man Joe Thompson said, "No, my dear, I'm not going to leave you." And then he stooped down, covered or wrapped this young girl in the new bedsheet which was given, or which was put over there by one of the neighbors, and very gently, like a woman, like a mother, with all the tenderness of the mother, he lifted the young girl into his arms, and holding her in his arms, he started walking outside into the fields, and that was the field which was between the hovel and his own house. So he crossed that particular field and started moving towards his house. So rest of the part we will do in the next coming up video. While we do this particular explanation of the story till this page, that is page number 77 till page number 79, please go through this chapter, read it while you are listening to this particular explanation also. It will be better for you to understand it that ways, and you will have a better understanding by looking into your books, going through the lines while I am reading it out for you and explaining at the same time. So that will be a better revision. Please do not ignore the videos, do not look them halfway down. Just go through the entire videos. That would be beneficial for you, because after this, next video would be the concluding of this particular same story. So with this, we come to the end of this video.